workshop on tips and strategies for buying and selling domains. And this will be moderated by Lisa Box here to my left. So I'll now turn it over to Lisa so we can get started.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you and welcome. I'm going to quickly introduce our panel of distinguished guests. We have Kathy Nielsen at the end. Kathy runs North American Sales and Brokerage for CEDO. She has been in this industry for several years, and she works closely with registry and registrar clients for auctions and sales. Next, we have Jason Miner. He is responsible for sales, customer service, and business development for Name Media. He was vital in launching the Afternic DLS and growing our industry sales. Tessa Holcomb, she is the Group General Manager for PPX International. She is one of the most well-known brokers in the industry as well. As we have Larry Fischer. Larry has done deals for years, such as Home.com, Autoparts.com, Stocks.com, and is pretty much recognized as one of the leaders in the large domain sales industry for buying and selling. Michael Berkens. If you don't know Michael, he writes the blog The Domains, and he's also the president and founder of Worldwide Media. So thank you. We're going to get started. Today we're going to talk about several topics within tips and strategies for buying and selling domains. I think the first one comes to mind, I get asked this all the time, is about domain valuation. How do you price domains to sell? Is it formulaic? Do you look at traffic stats, revenue stats? So just kind of want to get started there. Michael, you can go first. What are some of the factors that you look at when you're pricing domains or you're valuing a domain for sale?
So the first factor certainly is comparable sales that have been reported. So it's extremely important for everybody to read Mr. Jackson's DN Journal weekly and carefully review all of the sales in there, and as much as possible to try to at least recall some of the names that are similar to ones in your own portfolio. So
sometimes how do you gauge what's similar? Is it by category, length?
It's by all of these things. It's not really by length for me. It's for categories, similar topics, similar names. For example, a few months ago, I sold the name Visit Stockholm.com. So if you had a visit, city or visit state or country name in your portfolio, you could use that to justify your asking price. You would then take that, city of Stockholm, look at the population, the amount of tourism that the city gets, the amount of gross national product that is generated in business in that city, and then compare it to the geo that you have. And then your price would be adjusted up or down based on that comparable and other comparable sales of similar names.
I hear a lot of talk about stats on names. Maybe, Larry, could you give kind of a brief overview of what does that mean and how does that affect the value of a name?
Well, in the past few years, what has become more of a norm for most people is looking at the revenue, looking at the visits, the number of visits, where they come from, to determine value within a name. I know when we were early selling back in maybe 5 years ago, there would be an X factor. It would be a multiple based on the earnings. That's one measurement. Is it the perfect measurement? No. But that's really what a lot of users, a lot of end users want to see revenue and base a deal on revenue. Others just want to own a market and have the major name for that category. And in those examples, really stats don't exist.
When some of our users are trying to figure out the best way to price their domains, are there any tools out there that might be able to help them? So we mentioned DN Journal and looking at the comparable sales. Are there any other tools that you might use, such as Alexa, estimate, different things?
What we look at a lot of times is see how strong the name is in Alexa. Easterbot can go either way. I always say if it helps your cause, use it. If it doesn't help your cause, don't use it. We also look at what other names in the industry have sold, similar to Michael was talking about, and we also look at the company we're dealing with. I mean, if we know a company will get great value from it, and we feel the name is stronger than what others are offering, we'll hold on until that company realizes it.
What do you think about some of the tools that are out there, Jason, or some of the ways that you use to value domains?
Yeah, I think evaluating some of the domains, I know Afternic and Cito both have programs where we can give pricing on domain or suggestions on pricing. We use a lot of the comparables, so sales that we've had in the past over the last 10 years. We've gathered that information and make that available to individuals so you can see comparable sales in the past to get a good idea. And Ron Jackson's site is obviously a great place to go. But I think taking a look at that and getting that estimate is an important thing in pricing the domain to have a sell.
Well, and doesn't Cito do a pretty large market study each year to talk about what's going on with valuation of domains?
Yeah, am I on? It doesn't sound like it. There I am. Yeah, we do a market study every year. We look at all of the sales. We break them down into categories, what TLDs are selling. We look at the average sale prices. So all of these things we publish this on our website, by the way. It's under Cito Resources. And you can take a look at these factors as well as some of the others that you're all looking at or that you've all talked about. And I think one thing that's very important here, don't use one source. Many different things. Estabot is great, NameBio. Use a couple different sources, the comparables on Ron Jackson's site. Those are all very good. And again, these are all automated things that anyone can do, and it's free. And then there are some other appraisal services that both Afternic and Cito offer that if you have a really, one name you really need to get eyeballs looking at and spending some time on it, that's a really good idea.
I was just going to say also talk to a number of brokers. I know I'll have a name that I'm thinking about's worth something. I'll call Michael. I'll just say, what's your thoughts on this? And he might bring up other reasons why it's worth more or less. So for someone out there, you could actually call one of us, or you should definitely call a number of brokers to get their idea of what they can actually get for it. But like in real estate, a broker may want to have an exclusive, so you want to be sure that that broker can get what he thinks for that price, or you believe he can get what he thinks for that price.
Well, now you've worked with a number, Tessa, of buyers and sellers. When you have someone who does finally set a price and it's, in your opinion, extremely high, how do you kind of set their expectations to either bring it in line, or on the other side, if it's set too low, how do you show them that you think it's worth more?
Well, it is pretty common that an owner would come in with a price that we feel is too high. That does happen. But we keep hearing the common comparables, and that's just something that's so important. If they have the information to back their estimation and why they think the price is so high, then we'll talk about it. We have discussions. We talk about the search, the existing traffic, how much people are currently paying for that keyword, how many advertisers are currently paying for that keyword. All of those things are factors leading to the value of the price. And if I can walk the owner through those points and really show them how I'm getting to my final estimate, then it's an education process.
Another tool that you really should use is really Google, and you really should see how that particular term is being used in other extensions. For example, if you're at abc.com, you'd want to see what abc.net, .org, what all these other extensions were doing. If you found the .net that had a tremendous amount of traffic, it was a built-out site. Some people have developed sites on .nets, .orgs, .infos, .bizes, and then realize that they're losing a lot of traffic to the .com, want to upgrade, and it's obviously very valuable for you to know that that situation is at least out there, although you may not have the person that owns the name identify themselves to you in their contact as the owner. But if you know that there's a .net that gets 100,000 visitors a month, you have something that is potentially a lot more valuable than not with it being there.
Interesting. I think, one of the things that keep coming up is, so once a domain value or a price is set, does that really affect the sell-through rate of that domain? I know a lot of people who want to just put their names out there and see if offers come in and deal with it kind of in a one-off. So maybe Kathy, can you describe, what is the real difference between a make offer or something that has a set price when it comes to affecting the valuation or the actual sell-through of that domain?
Jason can back me up on this for sure, because we have the same experiences. We all want to sell to end users. And end users don't like to come and see just make an offer. They have no idea what the price expectation is. So what we've seen is that if you have a price expectation on there, you set a price, end users are much more likely to make an offer and start negotiations and close in a sale. Last year, we had 25% of all of our sales coming from fixed price selling. Now that's a buy it now price, and there's another kind of pricing category that we have where you can have a listing price, but the actual fixed price where it's buy it now, that's 25% of all of our sales. So that's a significant number, and we keep seeing that one grow.
Jason, do you see, what has your experience been on the setting an actual value versus having kind of a make offer?
Yeah, I think we sell into the small to medium-sized business owner who's interested in purchasing a domain, and we've seen when an individual prices their domain, we have a 10x velocity of the sale of the domain. So a small to medium-sized business owner coming to the website wants to see a price. They want to then have some form of negotiation from that. Also, there's a tremendous amount of people that just purchase from that price. I think that a domain that's unpriced and some of the high-value domain names you're trying to acquire and take a look at and need more negotiation, you want to see what's happening in the marketplace. Some don't need to be priced, but small to medium-sized business owners, I believe, truly feel a trust when there's a price. If it's unpriced, they feel as though, what's the price going to be? They might not inquire about it. They might feel as though they've been taken advantage because now all of a sudden someone's interested in the domain, so the price is going to be outrageous. So I think having a price domain for small to medium-sized business owners who are interested is really important.
Once a price is set and a domain owner is really comfortable with that, what are some of the best ways, Michael, that people can get their names out there for sales?
Well, we have on our landing pages, we have an offer link on every page that goes to our site. There's a little form that gets filled out. We have a $2,500 minimum. That's clearly stated on it, so we sort of get rid of the $50 and $100 offers. That's by which most of our incoming buyers come from. And the other way is we still get maybe 5, 7 who-is inquiries off the who-is records a day. We don't do any outbound, so we basically, all our sales are from incoming inquiries.
Well, I mean, in our expertise on the higher end, I personally do a lot of calling to different companies in an industry that could use a particular keyword. I know that for the most part, we've been successful at it. We also get a number of people who just pick up the phone and call us based on the who is, and we're able to start negotiations. On the larger domains, I'll give an example. There can be such price disparity between similar names. We had a name that we sold about 2 years ago to a major publishing firm, and they had originally looked at the plural for this name actually the person who owns it is in this room, and people that own the plural wanted $10 million for the name. We were able to analyze the singular versus the plural, and we were able to do the sale for a little bit under 7 figures, and both parties won, the party selling the name and the party that bought the name. I know that goes off a little bit from what we're talking about, but if you also have a number of names, I know both Afternic and Cito, and I'm not sure if PPX has, where they're involved in multiple listings, sort of like multiple listings on real estate. So if you list it with one of their companies, it also comes up on registrars when you're doing who is searches. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jason, do you have a...
Yeah, no, I think once the name is priced, the biggest thing you want to do is the distribution. I mean, from what Cito has done with MLS and Afternic with the DLS, it's getting the name into as many people as you possibly can, into the major registrars so they can see that the name's available for sale. So I think distribution is probably one of the more important things once you price your domain name.
Absolutely agreed. I mean, a lot of people know what Cito and Afternic are, but not everybody. A lot of people are still going to the registrars, looking up the name to see if they can register it. And if it's not, Cito and Afternic have got these multiple listing services that are in there feeding the secondary market names available for instant purchase. And I mean, that's definitely the wave of the future.
So price, distribution, it kind of sounds like standard business model, right? The 4 Ps. So now we're talking about, distribution with all of the different partners. And I know that there's many out there, after Nick, Cito, there's other ways to get in front of them with partnerships and other online sites. So as many kind of online sites, you've got Whois, Lookup, and inbound calls. What about brokerage? Tessa, what about if somebody's got 500 to 1,000 names and maybe they're kind of the mid-tier to the upper tier, do you recommend brokerage services, and what are the benefits of having a broker to some of these folks?
I definitely recommend brokerage services. Yeah. Again, all of this, I think definitely exposure is key for the lower price point names. When you're getting up to the 6-7 figure names, you really need to have somebody working on the name. And the key to using a professional broker, you find the broker that you connect with, that understands your goal and is willing to work with you. And some owners want that constant feedback. They want to know, on a weekly basis, what's going on with my name, who have you been marketing it to, what kind of feedback are you getting. A successful, a professional broker will hopefully the goal is to really generate multiple interest, among a lot of parties. So you're, like Larry said, you're going to find companies that will benefit from using that keyword, having that keyword in their domain name, and not just one, hopefully a lot, and try to generate several companies bidding for the name.
So, Larry, tell us about some of the sales experiences you've had, like with Stocks.com or Gadgets.com. What were some of the key factors that actually helped close those deals and get them through?
Well, some of the names that we bought, like Stocks.com, we look at the industry, we look to see how large the industry is, what the cost for leads in that industry would cost for whether it's pay-per-click or CPL, and then we determine if the industry is a growth industry. We then look at other sales that have occurred in the industry, sales that we know of, and we rate this particular name against other sales and put all those factors together. And the one last missing ingredient, it's like a gut check. You have to feel right about it. And I know most of us up here, we've been doing this for a long time, so there's usually like a gut check, and if we feel something strongly enough, it's usually right.
Well, let's talk about the flip side now. Since we've talked about a lot about selling domains and pricing things to sell, let's talk a little bit about buying names. I get a lot of questions on where are kind of the places to go to buy domains, both for end users and domain investors. For people starting out with a small investment fund and they want to get into the domain industry, what are some of the tools, the resources they can do to find sets of domain names that might be a good ROI for them in the next couple of years?
Well, there's so many different ways that people participate in domain investing. You have people that are happy registering an $8 drop domain and then going to like a platform like Snap Names and selling it for $59 the next week and just keep doing it over and over again. And then you have, people like, Mr. Fischer that, specialize in, high 6- and 7-figure domains. So there's such a spread that it's really hard to create a rule for, generally speaking for everybody. But I would say, as far as purchasing names or acquiring domains, I think there are still a lot of good names coming on the drop, either on an exclusive basis through like a name jet, through NSI, or even just a general drop where it's available through any registrar, the old-fashioned way.
Describe the kind of the drop process a little bit, because I know I get a lot of questions on this, and it's not as intuitive as say the secondary market or things like that.
Yeah, so there's several different drops that occur every day. Some registrars drop their inventory, their expired names, to a particular source. For example, Network Solutions and Enom drops to NameJet. There's a bunch of registrars like Monocro that'll drop only into Snap Names. GoDaddy has their own auction site and system. And then everybody who doesn't have an exclusive, all these other miscellaneous registrars, the names just drop between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. every day. First come, first serve. Now a lot of those names, again, are picked up through NameJet and Snap Names through back orders. But some of them are, picked up by hand reg after the drop or people's own scripts. We have a script that runs during the drop that registers names. And I think, that's probably, if you were coming into the business right now with, not a lot of cash, that would be the quickest way of picking up, quality domains at the cheapest cost.
Do you see a lot of domain investors in auctions, Kathy? Or do you see mainly end users?
Mostly domain investors actually in auctions. I think end users are, again, uncomfortable not knowing what the price is going to be, so they'd much rather negotiate for a price and not be competing with other people.
Interesting. Any?
Well, again, you're asking about how somebody would get started and if they want to buy domains. I go back to, I think using a professional broker can really be of assistance, because you can work with a broker, explain to them what you're looking for, what kind of names you're looking for, what kind of portfolio you might have, your budget, just like having a financial advisor. You can either choose to go and buy stocks on your own, or you can have a financial advisor walk you through the process and go out on your behalf and find the right product for you.
That's a good.
I just wanted to note that people that are just starting out in this business, don't be scared that it's been years. I mean, we're doing domains for 15 years. There's always going to be new growth in this industry. I remember reading that Thomas Edison was once told by the person running the patent office that almost every invention that ever could be created was created. And I think they've had a lot more since. With all the new TLDs coming around, there's just so much growth. This industry is just a small, it's just right at the start of it, and I think there's a lot to go. I mean, there was a hand reg last year, or was it cam roulette that resold? Yes, with chat roulette being so popular last year, somebody, I think it was cam or cams roulette, that purchased the name, then it was repurchased a few months later, and then sold at one of the drop auctions for $150,000 or so. So it is still possible to get hand regs and make money off them.
Well, that's an interesting topic. Is there any specific kind of categories that will show a better ROI, kind of in the low, medium, high range for new investors?
Well, one good thing is you look at Google and you can open an account and look at various domain names and see what people are spending on these particular names, and follow the money. If a name has a high cost for a click, it's most likely that there'll be buyers for names in that industry.
What are some of the opportunities outside the .com, .net market that you're seeing maybe in the CCTLD, the country code, top-level domain market?
We just, again, published this market study for 2010, and we saw that, not surprisingly, .de was still the second best-selling the first best-selling CCTLD. And when your country code is what CC stands for, for those of you that don't know that. So Germany is a very, very strong market, and that one takes 46% of all of the country code market. And then the next one is .eu.
46% for the DE.
46% of all
Wow.
CCTLDs. And the EU is the next one, which is not a specific country code, but it stands for the European Union. I get mixed reactions. I hear some people like it, some people don't. I really like it, and it's all consistently strong, and this takes 20%, so that's right after .de. Then we have co.uk. What else do we have? And then .tv was the fourth on the list this year. .tv was definitely strong. It doesn't relate so much to the country. I think people are buying it for media purposes and video, but it's very strong this year, last year.
Jason, what do you think the most important recent innovation that's helping kind of buyers and sellers get together in the aftermarket?
I think I take a look at both what Afnic and Cito have done for the distribution, as we talked about earlier. I think it's really important that getting a name out there to individuals. So I think the biggest thing we've done over the last few years is to get these larger registrars and communities to be able to sell your names. So getting that distribution, and the next thing I think I would take a look at as that distribution grows is really fast transfer, instant transfers. When someone purchases a domain on the primary market, they can get the name into their account immediately. This fast transfer, instant transfer process does the same thing for the secondary domains. So domain owner or business owner that's registering a new domain, doesn't have to go through that escrow process. It's instantly transferred into their account just as a primary registration's done. So the market's now recognizing that that process can be just as fast. So I think the distribution and having the names listed on multiple sites, having your names priced, but that fast transfer now makes business owners feel real comfortable with the process and how it works.
Well, you brought up the escrow process. Maybe you could describe the difference kind of between fast transfer depository or then having an escrow service, perhaps, when you're doing a transaction.
Well, yeah, I personally recommend escrow. If it protects both the buyer and the seller. There are a number of different services. One that's automated is escrow.com, but I prefer either using a domain lawyer or possibly Afsnick or Sato has great services. And when you're using escrow, basically you transfer the domain name only after the receipt of money by the escrow agent. And
so unlike fast transfer, where it's like credit card, instant transaction, things of that nature, this is for kind of where maybe there's a wire involved or a contract and things of that nature.
Right, exactly.
Got it.
Oh, you go ahead.
Yeah, fast transfer is also secure. Escrow and handling escrow is a longer process itself, but fast transfer, instant transfer is also a secured transaction because funds are guaranteed. It's just the person can receive the domain immediately. So it works the same way. And I agree with escrow. There's several escrow services out there that are of high quality. And larger sales, and taking a look at those larger sales, you really want that security to make sure that funds don't get delivered before the domain gets delivered. So it ties them two together really nice.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
I stole it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of the future of where we're going in this industry. I get a lot of questions of, you know, with the economy, what's going on in different markets, what do we see as the kind of the future for the aftermarket and the domain sales? What do you think about the new TLDs, the generic top-level domains? How are they going to affect the value in the market that we see it today?
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity in the new GTLDs for domain investors and for domainers in general to not only from the domainer side, the traditional side where you acquire domains and sell domains, but also to run and become your own registry and actually run it as a business from the other side. So it's going to be an open process where people can play from the other side of the field. But in an environment of 500 possibly new extensions coming out in the next year or two, the effect that may have on current extensions is really just a good guess at this point. I don't think anybody knows what is really going to happen when you go from 21 TLDs that have existed since the beginning of the internet, 25 years since the first domain name was registered, to go to 521 TLDs within a year.
How do anyone think that the new generic top-level domains is going to affect the current aftermarket?
Immediately, I don't think it's going to affect .coms, .nets, or .orgs because each of those are stable. Personally, in the last few years, I've seen .net and .org transactions increase in value. Some very high-end ones that they now go 6 and 7 figures for .orgs and .nets. In terms of the new TLDs, one factor that no one knows about is how the search engines, especially Google, since Google has the majority of search in the country, how Google is going to treat or rank these particular TLDs. Are they going to start treating them, let's say if you have .insurance, will that be a de facto, or will that be something that Google ranks higher than if you had insurance.com? So it's all a guess right now.
It's interesting. What do you think will take to get more end users into this market?
Knowledge that there is a market. I know there's a lot of companies that I speak with that have no idea that they can go into an aftermarket situation. What normally happens is you have to keep educating these people, and hopefully one day there will be because there are a number of different good aftermarket type of out there, that there'll be one central system, sort of like a stock exchange, that could possibly bring strong liquidity to the market, and I think that would help.
Tessa, in your involvement, how do you think people can increase the value of their domains and find qualified buyers?
Well, increasing the value of their domains, again, when it goes back to that assessment of what they think the domain is worth and what it could sell for, we look at what people are looking for. It might be the keyword in the domain. When you're talking about the future of sales and what we're seeing right now, I see a big trend on, people are monetizing their domains. The option was PPC. And right now we're seeing so many more people lean towards CPA as an option. And because of that, we're seeing domains in those verticals that are performing well on CPA sell for more. So if you have that kind of traffic coming to your domain that converts well on a CPA platform, you're seeing a higher value.
What types of categories are doing well there, and should domain owners be looking to kind of develop their sites in order to get the value up, or just keep them as domains and work on more distribution, or both?
Well, to the first question as to what categories are doing well, we've been able to see some great results in a lot of categories that aren't as much on the forefront and as common, but some of the most common categories would be health and fitness, finance, dating, gaming. There's a lot that are doing well, and so the value of those names are going up. As far as development, if you can develop a name enough to generate the kind of traffic that Google likes and rank on page 1, then that's where you're going to see the highest ROI.
Yeah, I think if you're taking a look at development, I agree with what you're saying too. For development, it's always the 80-20 rule. I find more and more portfolio owners coming to us where we find that 20% of their portfolio is making almost 100% of their parking revenue, or 80%, as we at Afternic say, is that long tail. It's probably not making a lot of revenue. So there's options out there for, as Afternic has in SmartName, some content sites or e-commerce sites that you can build. There's no cost to doing that, and we're finding that there's a lot of SEO rankings going up, and there's now traffic coming to those domains. The revenue is not as high as the PPCs, but now starting to build those sites up and starting to see more traffic coming to those is very important. And if the purpose of that long tail is to sell that domain, as Mike mentioned earlier, I think it's very important on top of the page we have a link that says the domain's available for sale. So now you're starting to drive more traffic to the domain that had no traffic before. And the purpose of selling it, that link then drives it to a sales force who's making that sale for you. So I think development can help in both the sale of the domain name, if it doesn't have it, but for the portfolio of the larger 20% that's making most of the revenue, PPC and other things I think are better options.
Have you found that when you sell sites, Larry, that development is key, or is it mainly the brand value of that domain?
My personal experience has been the brand value of the domains. There are great sites that sell that are a combination of both, but in terms of what has been happening in the past, I'd say 95% have been sold more due to, and this is for top-end generics, more due to the name than for the site.
What about the long tail, not the one-word commerce-driven kind of premium names, but the kind of 2 to 3 words? Does it help to have some sort of content on those, or is the big thing to...
There's definitely a growth in sales for long-term, of finished sites, whether it's a small mini sites or something a little bit more grand. The only thing I will suggest is, based on what Matt Cutts said recently, Google is trying to eliminate some of these small sites from their search engines, sites that possibly have really no real value except trying to get Google to go there. So when you are looking for development companies that are doing those things, you should try and see what value the site will add to make sure that it will still rank in Google or could rank in Google.
So good content, good ideas, adding value.
Exactly.
If you're looking to take kind of a longer tail site to increase that value.
Perfect. Yep.
What are some of the other opportunities, Kathy, that you see in the future, maybe in the international market, and how that's going and growing? It sounds like it's getting to be stronger and stronger, but is there anything else in the kind of landscape that you see coming down the pipe?
Well, I think overall the international market is a very big player. I always like to quote this monthly auction we have called Great Domains, and almost 50% of the buyers in that auction, and they're all .com and .net, and almost 50% of the buyers in that auction are from outside of North America. So it's just important to know that there's a very strong international buying market. They're not just buying CCTLDs, they are investing all across the board as well. And I think there are some really interesting new extensions on the market. .tv did very well again last year. .co is a very interesting one to follow. I think after Sunday will be really interesting to see if the Super Bowl ad has any effect on it, and I'm sure it will. And on that topic, on .co, our experience of the past 6 months, it's only been out since July, we're seeing end user buying that a lot. I don't see a lot of investors at this point, but I think there's a ton of opportunity there, knowing that it's very strong in the end user buyer market.
Would you recommend, or anyone here, because I think that the .co extension is, kind of one of the newer ones that's coming to market, would you recommend to any of the domain masters here that they get kind of start snatching up some of those names and registering those names?
That's the beauty. You can still register a lot of them.
Right.
There's only 600,000 .cos, or approximately 600,000 registrations, so there's still a lot of inventory available. And I look at it as sort of if you were a professional stock investor, and you would want to diversify your portfolio. You'd want to have some tech stocks. You might be heavier in tech than other things, but you'd still want maybe some manufacturing, some banking, some so you some utilities, so you diversify your holdings somewhat. And that's how I see a lot of these, country code or vanity extensions like .co or .tv or .me. I think it's good to divest and have an interest in these extensions to protect your overall portfolio, even though the vast majority of your holdings are going to be in the .coms, .nets, and .orgs.
Interesting. Any major predictions for the future? What do you think the most important thing for these people to learn is today in negotiating a sale, and what are some of the future predictions you see, Jason?
I think in negotiating a sale, one of the most important things we talk about is I think having that name priced is very important. So you have that small to medium-sized business owner who might be interested in purchasing it or taking a look at that. I think pricing is the most important thing. We talked about having the link on top of the page. Some of the other things is that we've run some stats on Afternic where having an educated sales force who's helping you make that sale also helps out. We found that some domain owners might not respond to individuals very fast, and if a day goes by, within 24 hours, we've found that 25% that opportunity of selling that domain is now lost. And after 48 hours, anywhere between 50 to 75% of that opportunity is lost. Because domain owners or individuals actually purchasing domains are starting to look at other names. So they're looking at different markets, they're looking at different opportunities, they're starting to judge price. So one of the things that we try to do at Afternic is to respond to that lead immediately, being available 24 hours to answer the telephone, making sure that the individual who's on it is getting a call at least immediately when they inquire about a domain. So I think speed to the market itself is so very important if you're trying to sell a domain. So
what do you think some of the predictions for over the next kind of 2 to 3 years is going to be for the market?
I mean, I can speak for Afternic. We had one of our strongest quarters last year in the fourth quarter. January was incredibly successful. So I can only say that it continues to grow. So it's a very positive trend for what we're seeing. I mean, the predictions, it's talk about, if you had your crystal ball to be able to find the ones that you want to buy. I think a domain owner or someone who's speculating and wants to purchase domains, you have to find domains that you're interested in. Find some vertical that you're interested in. My wife and my daughter ride horses. I have domains that were around horses. It's one of those things that you're interested in talking about it, because when you're talking to someone who's interested in buying it, you have the facts and figures of what's going on because you know the market. But for predictions, I think it's just getting better and better, so I'm very happy.
What do you think some of the future holds for us in terms of the domain market?
I agree. I mean, we saw another increase last year, 12% overall last year. So it's just continuing to grow, which, a lot of people, they're just not sure if it will. They think, is there an end to it? I don't see an end to it. There are opportunities popping up every single day. So I think it's an exciting time. You can still get in. I think maybe Larry mentioned this, that you don't have to be intimidated that if you're just starting now. There are so many opportunities in different areas, and look to invest what you know in, what you know. That's.
Any last parting words, Tessa?
My prediction is that there will be a lot more newbies coming into the market. So a lot of education going on, both on investor side and end user side, which is exciting to me because it's really fun to talk to someone that's coming into the market new and really educate them on all the options, ranging from monetization to acquisition to sales, and then as well as end users or people starting businesses and really talking to them about how to develop their brand and what a domain can mean to them, the right domain.
Larry, what do you think?
I think there will be probably the largest domain sale ever in the next year or two, something maybe between 20 and 30 million for a domain only. And I also think there'll be a lot of consolidation in the industry. Now that the capital markets have opened up and there's more money flowing, you'll see additional purchases by some of these companies to get their feet in the door.
One point I wanted to make, because both myself and Larry alluded to it, is that a lot of offers come in through Whois records. So I know there's a lot of people that use privacy or use inaccurate information in their Whois, and by doing so, they're losing opportunities to sell names. So we've never used privacy. We have an address, we have a phone number, we have email, everything works. And we do get inquiries daily through the Whois. If you have privacy, although there's a way of using the privacy Whois address to get a hold of people, I think that, especially to a really unsophisticated buyer, scares a lot of people off. So if you want to maximize your sales, have accurate Whois information. In the last 6 months or so, I've really seen a discernible change, I think, in end users and their knowledge of the domain market and the value of domains. I've been selling domains ever since I started back in 1999 and get 15 to 20 offers a day, so I have a lot of dealings with the public. And up until a year ago, when you responded with a price on a domain, the typical response you got back was, "Hey, you're crazy, domains aren't worth that kind of money, I'll go register a new one for $10 at GoDaddy." But now in the last year, and even more recently in the last 6 months, when you start quoting a price of $25 or $50 or $100,000, instead of getting that kind of an email back, you gain okay, I'll give you 20 grand, or I'll give you 30 grand, and you actually get a reasonable first offer counter to my offer. So I think there is a change. I think people have gotten educated. I think the GoDaddies of the world and the commercials, the articles that have gotten written. I know a lot of these guys have gotten press and mainstream publications, and all of that's helping.
Yeah, if you go back 6 years ago, sitting behind the booth and talking to individuals who came up and talked to you, it was the domain investor. I mean, they had a portfolio of domains. They've managed this. They were very fortunate to have purchased those domains years ago. Sitting behind the booth at the conference now there's a bunch of people who have 10 or 15 domains, and they sold one, and now they're hooked, and now it's considered to be a hobby, and it's very interesting, and it's funny how it's transitioning from what was years ago just a domain investor to people who are doing it as a hobby to where now it's a full-time job, and they've left the other job that they had. So I think they're finding a lot of rewards with what's happening with the market, because as Kathy and everyone else said, it's never ending. I mean, the drop still continues to offer great domains and great buys, and the aftermarkets and how things are working, so it's just very positive.
Well, I definitely want to allow for some time for questions. So if anyone has any questions for our panel, now is a great time to ask. There's, I think, 2 mics here. Bill, you want to go first?
Hi, Bill Sweetman from Yummy Names. I want to ask the panelists if they could recommend, particularly for the up-and-coming domainers and aspiring domainers, good websites and blogs that people could read to learn about best practices for selling their domains.
You want to take that one?
There's obviously a lot of domain blogs now and great resources that didn't exist 5 years ago. The best thing to do is, first of all, to go to domaining.com, which is sort of an aggregator of all sorts of different domain blogs. You can go through there and get a feel for what each reader feels is most educational for them. I, of course, write thedomains.com. Ron Jackson's DN Journal. Andrew writes domain name Wire. There's a lot of other, Elliot writes Elliot's blog. And there's a bunch of other really good resources out there. But domaining would be a good place to start.
Michael said it all. But I start with the domains first, and then I go to domaining.com and see what else is out there. But
Hi, Andrew Stern from Seedcorn Advertising. When you are looking for a domain, and say you have a few in mind, and you go to the Whois, and you go to their website, and you contact them, and you don't get a response, what are some other alternatives for trying to track down that person if indeed they aren't interested in selling the domain?
I'd have to say contact Cito or Afternic, because we've probably dealt with them before, and sometimes we've mentioned it in the Whois, the information is inaccurate. We probably have their cell phone number and can give them a call.
Most of the brokerage services, I think, would be a good location. Tessa, what do you think about using brokers to reach people who aren't responding?
Well, like I said before, finding a broker that you connect with and that can understand your goals and is willing to work with you in the way that you want to work is a really good start. And then once you have that broker, they can do a lot of the legwork for you.
The other option might be to check domain tools and to check the Whois history, because it may have changed. It may not have. It may have had accurate information previously.
right, they have in domain tools a paid service where you can look back and see previous registrations.
Yeah, I also agree with you, like Kathy had said. I mean, I think even looking at the page, if it's a parked page, most of us can take a look at that page and probably understand who the owner is. They're very similar in how they do things, so I think you can take a look at that. I think that it's a simple process itself. We probably know who the person is anyway.
Yeah, hi, my name's John Jordan. I'm a new domain investor. Just curious what resources might be available if you're looking to package domains together for sale, like do a bulk sale or a small portfolio sale?
I'll take that. At Afternic, we get approximately 17,000 inquiries for people who are interested in purchasing domains on a monthly basis. We've gathered those resources, and we find individuals who are interested in specific names. So what we've done in the past is, as new domains or portfolios come into us, we try to, if we possibly can, bundle names together. So if an investor is interested in selling, 15 insurance names that are in the same category, we have individuals that we've done business with in the past that are interested in bulk purchases. Sometimes there's a larger discount that might be required on a bulk purchase, but it all depends on the speed to market of how quickly you want to sell that portfolio. Individually might be better depending on what vertical it is and so on and so forth, but I think it's reaching an audience like Sato or Afternic where they've had repeat buyers who have come in and have purchased multiple domains in the past.
Thanks.
The tax laws on domains appear to be still a bit slightly gray and solid. It appears they're like guidelines, not rock solid. When do you feel it's appropriate to use the long-term, if you will, discounted tax rate as compared to being taxed at the regular rate, your regular income rate when selling domains?
Well, I mean, it's a hard question to answer generally for everybody in the room. But we take our sales that are domains that we've held for more than 1 year and treat them as capital gains. We've also, our best counsel we've received is that the proper way to account for the write-off of the acquisition of domains is by amortizing them over 15 years. Certainly not for just a pure registration for $10, but for a premium domain that you bought, spent $1,500 on, the proper way to account for that would be to write that off $100 per year for the next 15 years. And of course, if you sell the name, then you have to recapture the amortization and true it back up again.
Right. There are no cases that the IRS have decided on, and I'm with Mike. We treat it more like trademarks, and trademarks are done based on a 15-year schedule.
I think that the important thing, if you're a new domain investor, the legal and the tax, and there's a lot of professionals here at this conference that can help you. And most people who've been in the domain industry for a while are great to work with. You can walk up and ask any of them any of the questions, and they'd be more than happy to kind of point you in the right direction. But it is important to protect yourself. and to know these rules hard and fast so that you don't make any kind of crucial errors that could jeopardize those investments.
Hi, Adam Strong. Got a question about pricing domains. I've seen a push from Cito and Afternic for sellers to put price tags on names. And Larry and Michael, I'd like to hear your opinions on pricing names and how that affects, there's a lot of volatility. Like if I had put a price, I wasn't here earlier, but I heard you had mentioned Cam Roulette. And if I had put a price tag on Cam Roulette, I would have sold it for much, much less than $151,000. But so I'm wondering if you guys could you two could speak on that, and I guess you guys should follow up with your opinions on the price tag.
For pricing, I'd usually call you first and ask. There's two methods. It really depends. I agree with you. I would have never asked that for Cam Roulette also. But there are times when if somebody comes to you and offers you something, most times if you say no because you don't want to buy it, or sell it, I should say, they'll keep coming back with higher prices. I know Rick Schwartz, that's something that he's done for years. I'll give you 3 quick examples I can think in my head. One domain that we sold, somebody had offered, based on an email, $5,000, and he kept coming back. And I would throw some stupid number at him, but eventually that name sold to him 2 years later for over $400,000. There was a domain somebody else asked me $50,000 for, and over the couple of years they kept going up and up and up, and finally it sold for 7 figures. It gets to a point, I mean, not everyone could wait that long, but if you don't have to sell, sometimes the best thing to do is say no. Now, I know you really want more specific. I have no problem quoting a price, but if you want a certain amount and you're going to quote it at a high number, be prepared that less people are going to offer that number.
I mean, I think I know the question you're asking, and personally, I've always refused to pre-price names and leave them out there for an unlimited period of time. I think the market's too fluid. Going back to the comparables, for example, I'll do, as I said, I sold the Visit Stockholm for $77,000 a few months ago. I just completing the sale of Visit Berlin for $220,000. That should be announced soon through Sedu. I think when you see sales like that, then your whole pricing model has to change. There's stuff that, tech world is very, very fluid. Somebody will come out with a new product, a new venture. Some company will get funded for something. It's just too fluid to have all these names sitting out there pre-priced, in my opinion. So I would never do that.
Well, can you guys talk on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I go back to the 80-20. I think that there's 20% of everyone's portfolio that is very high quality. Not in everyone. I believe that Mike's portfolio is a higher quality portfolio, so in many situations you might not want to have pricing on it and getting inquiries and how those inquiries come in. But for an average portfolio owner out there where they're really trying, if you are trying to sell your portfolio, then that 80% that you're trying to sell should be priced. I think that to a small to medium-sized business owner who's coming to a site, there's a tremendous amount of trust that comes in with the fact of doing that. So I think it's important to price those names. And if there truly is the reason you're doing that is to sell them, then price them. I think that's very, very important. But for your higher quality domain names, receiving inquiries on those and negotiating on price, I think you have to, even on those, after the inquiry comes in, establish a price. It can't just be, make me an offer. There has to be some starting point itself. I mean, you as a domain owner, I think, have some responsibility to come back with something to them. You just can't say, I'm only accepting offers over $1 million. It's just, you can say that, but back it up with some information of why that is.
Exactly.
If you bring up the point, just real quick on the quality of the names, maybe you and Larry could describe quickly what would make that 20%? How do you define that quality? And how do you define the quality of the names that kind of are in the 80%, especially for the new investors? I get asked that question a lot.
Well, if I own it or market it, it's then 20%. That could sell higher. No.
I think I take a look at the 20% of the portfolio of many portfolio owners is the ones that's making revenue. So they've got a tremendous amount of clicks, they're making revenue for you. There's no reason to sell those domains unless someone comes at a very high price. even in our own portfolio of buy domains, there's 20% of those names that are making a lot of money. So we're going to hang on to those names, and if someone's interested in buying them, they're going to have to come back with a high price tag. We're either going to develop those names or do other things. The 80% of them that are in that long tail is the reason why we sell 3,000 plus domains on a monthly basis. That's why we do that. So I think having those priced and having those out there is very important. So,
besides high revenue generating domains, do you think that there's other types of domains that are out there that kind of qualify for that premium, where you might want to just have that be more of a negotiation than have a buy it now price on it?
Yeah, I think traffic and PPC revenue are just one of very many factors in determining the valuation of a domain. So, you know, again, like these visit names, they didn't have any crazy amount of traffic, a few hundred visitors a month maybe, didn't have a crazy amount of PPC value, but they're premium names. And I think, you know, it's very, again, it's such a fluid, you know, world, especially the tech world. And Adam's example is a really good one, you know, of the cam roulette. I mean, I think that if you looked at a portfolio of, you know, 10,000 names, would you pick that as, you know, one of the top 20% best name? Probably not. Just looking at a portfolio, but you never know. You never know when there's, you know, a new technology, new program, new TV show, new movie. You know, the whole world changes almost every day, and you never know. So I think it's important to be fluid, but there's a lot of different models. Again, there's a lot of different domainers in the world, and exactly how they want to conduct their business. You know, there's you know, the high volume sellers where you sell a lot of names at a lower cost very regularly. Nothing wrong with that. And then there's guys like Rick Schwartz, who, you know, has made a lot of headlines for selling a lot of high-profile names, but I think he's only sold 12 in his whole, you know, years of being in the domain world. And everybody's not similarly situated economically either. So, you know, some people don't have to sell, some people do have to sell. You have to kind of, and you have to do what you're comfortable with at the end of the day.
Right. Well, when I'm working with a client, we go into a number of factors, not only about the domain, but also about them. You know, are they, you know, can they afford not to sell? Do they have to sell? What would be acceptable to them? Most times we don't quote a price initially. The reason is we ask them to make an offer to see if they're serious or not. If they come back with, they might want to pay $1 million, but if they come back with $1,000, they're going to wait a while for an answer. But getting back to what Michael said, it really depends on each person. Some people can wait, and others can't, and you have to put those two together to decide what to price something at.
Hi, this is a two-part question. On the sales side, it seems like some of the marketplaces are not, from the seller's perspective, not protecting the seller in a sale as much as you may want to be. For those guys that are selling, do you recommend any tools for sales, bill of sale, an agreement, anything like that? And are there any risks that you want to caution of when selling a name short-term and long-term?
I guess I would say I think it's pretty secure the way we sell domains. I think that, I mean, our interest is to protect both the seller and the buyer. I mean, the seller comes to us and they sign an agreement. They have an agreement to say that they will sell that domain if they price that domain or it's listed on the site. It also protects the buyer to make sure that the name's available. I mean, there's a lot of websites to sell domains, and I think that you'll find that what we do is at Afternic is a lot of integrity checks. So we check the name, make sure the name's registered, that the domain owner owns that domain name. We check to see if it's a vice name, which we consider to be adult or gambling. We don't have those on our site. We also check for trademarks to sit there and make sure it's not a trademark site. So I think that's how we protect the seller in that situation. So when the buyer comes to us, they know the name's available. The name's going to get into their account, either through the fast transfer through one of the larger registrars, which we also have agreements and contracts with, or through the escrow service that we both offer. That's a secured transaction for both seller and buyer. So I think that it's a 50-50. We both protect the seller to make sure they're all set and the buyer itself.
And I think that there's a lot of other services with private brokerage, using an attorney, things like that. If you're uncomfortable, there's a lot of resources here at the show to speak with.
We have just time for 2 more questions.
Thank you. My name is Adrian Kinderis. I was buoyed by the optimism by some of the panelists for the opportunity with new GTLDs. Do you think that there will be a speculative market for new GTLDs? And if so, will we see an aftermarket, in some time in the future once we see the release of new GTLDs?
Yeah, I think yes and yes. I think we've seen it with .co, although that's not a GTLD, it's not TLD, it's a CCTLD, but it's a new release. Next up probably is .XXX this year. Probably nothing else till 2012, but the nature of domainers are to look for the next best thing, the next big thing. There's always opportunity when you start with a clean slate. And the that there's going to be so many very targeted new GTLDs when they come out. I think as a domainer, if you take a GTLD like .law, which is highly likely to come out, I think we all agree, we'd all like to own criminal.law and New York.law and on hundreds and probably thousands right offhand that you could think of that would probably make a very good investment.
Sorry, and just to be clear, I was actually, thank you for answering, but I actually meant at the top level rather than at the second level. So speculating and going and getting some top level domains as a domainer and holding on to those and then potentially creating an aftermarket at the top level.
So you're talking about...
So I'm saying if I want to go and buy toys right now and it's sold for a couple of $1 million, toys.com rather, maybe the opportunity for me is to go and get .toys.
Yeah, very possibly. And then you, as operating the registry, you can choose to you can do anything you want with that. You can keep it as a closed registry. For example, in .insurance, if you own .insurance, you can keep it for yourself and have cars.insurance and house.insurance and keep it in-house and build lead gen, hope to get ranked number 1 on Google. Or you can go the other way and try to sell as many registrations as you can, along with keeping out certainly a really premium list maybe of key generic terms that could be sold in the aftermarket. And I'm obviously a big believer in it. I just started a company with Monty Khan, right of the dot, to do pretty much exactly that. So big believer in the new GTLD space.
Thank you.
Next question.
That's just a quick one, Michael. How long ago did you come up with the idea of registering the visit, cities and stuff?
I don't know exactly. It wasn't really, probably quite a long time ago. It just makes sense. I think if you look around, you'll find that a lot of the official tourism sites of many countries and cities around the world use visit .com because the actual pure geo term, it would be too expensive for them to acquire even if it was available, and of course most of them are not available. So it's the next best probably name for travel purposes.
We're going to wrap up now since we are out of time. Thank you guys for coming.